black teddy bear. It's been a long time since I have not submitted any stories. Been busy with work for a couple of weeks. My story actually happened about 6 months ago. This took place at my fiancé's house. To begin with, my fiancé and I are not living together, however, we do have a daughter which was just 8 months old at that time. My fiancé, Anthony, was taking care of our daughter during that time, as I had to go to work. One night, our daughter woke up and kept crying. Anthony fixed her milk and tried to cradle her back to sleep. Franz, our daughter, was not pacified. She kept crying and crying. Anthony placed her back in her crib and noticed that Franz was very uneasy and kept staring at the black teddy bear in the room. No matter how he tried to carry Franz in his arms, Franz would always look back at the black teddy bear. As pissed as he was, he threw a pillow hardly on the black teddy bear. Franz from then stopped crying, drank her milk and went back to sleep. Anthony was puzzled and somehow it gave him the creeps. As there were stories from their helpers, claiming that they see a child running around the room, or a woman sitting in the living room. As what they said, children are very sensitive to the paranormal. Maybe that certain entity was bothering her that night that made her feel restless. I feel so bad for my daughter. Big black man. My parents bought a house in Cavite. It has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, one is located near the kitchen, one at the living room. It was my first week in that house and I enjoyed playing with my younger brother in my sister's room. Her room is the biggest of all. It is located near the dining/kitchen. One night, my eldest sister told my mom if she could sleep with her because she feels sick. When my kuya, eldest brother, heard about that, he asked us, my younger brother who is 6 years old that time, if we want to sleep with him in my aunt's room. We will play video games. We were all excited that time. That night, we played until 9:30 p.m. At around 10 p.m., my kuya told us that we have to sleep already, and we need to wake up early to attend a mass the next day. At around midnight, I felt so cold, so I looked up for my blanket, but I can't find it. I decided to turn on the light to see where it is, but still, I can't find it. When I looked up at the clock, it was already 1:45 a.m. I still feel so sleepy, that's why I decided to sleep and share with my brother's blanket. When it's time for me to turn off the light, I saw a shadow passed in front of me. I thought it's just my imagination, but when I turned back to see who it is, I was so shocked on what I saw. It was a big black man standing in front of me, around 6 feet 5 inches tall, and few inches away from me. He was wearing all black things including a big black hat that looks like a cowboy's hat. I was so scared that time. I cried and screamed, and I jumped on the bed and waked up my kuya. When my kuya saw that man, he also screamed, louder than mine. We cover ourselves with his blanket and we pray while crying. The next morning, we told our parents on what happened. At first, they didn't believe us, but when my aunt heard our stories, she also told our parents that she also saw that man the night before we sleep in her room. She saw the man standing beside her bed. After that, my parents decided to call a pastor to bless our house, and after the house blessing, the big black man didn't appear for 2 nights. We thought that he will not appear anymore, but we're all wrong, it's just the beginning. I'll share my other stories next time. the alumnus teacher in KSI. Miss Nanita Kudal was our batch advisor for our graduating batch 2005. She has no husband, and she dedicated her whole life in making Quezon City Sciences students' life better. She is the last surviving teacher from the establishment of the school 40 years ago. Since it was almost March at that time, we had been practicing the junior and senior prom rites. We were maintained in a line inside the big, covered court because of the hot blaze of the sun. It was almost afternoon. Me and my friend, Pepe, decided that we would leave the court and stay in the gazebo to play chess together with the others, because we believed that the practice is such a waste of time. We told our advisor that we would just go to the restroom because she wouldn't permit us to leave the practice. As we are about to run to the gazebo, Miss Kudal caught us and we made an excuse of, "We're just going to the CR thing." Of course, she have got that easily and we were forced to go back to the practice. When we got back to our lines, I saw Miss Kudal alone looking at our batch. To avoid detection, because she might tell our teacher that we tried to escape, I just didn't try to take a glimpse of her. Until our principal, Mrs. Cavo, gave an announcement. I was so shocked when she said that Miss Kudal died in the hospital this 6 o'clock in the morning because of bone cancer. We tried to find her, but she was not there. For the last moment, she did her role as our batch advisor and a Scientian mentor. The boy in the delivery room. I remember the first and last time I saw a ghost when I was in 4th grade. It was very terrifying when a chubby girl wearing black dress and waving a black handkerchief was floating right in front of me at the kindergarten room of our school. It was my first and last time I saw one, beyond what my eyes can see. But hearing unusual voices and caresses of weird wind never stopped until I reached in my present age. It always made me feel goosebumps. Though, I'm trying to ignore it. I'm in 3rd year BS nursing right now and we are already having our practicum in the delivery room. I never heard such ghostly stories before in that area of a certain hospital. I will not mention the hospital's name for privacy. It was my first time then to have my practicum at the delivery room and our shift is from 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. on the next day. We only had 2 patients in the labor room that time. At 1 a.m. one of the patients gave birth, and right after the delivery, she was transferred into her desired room at the ward. So, me, with my co-nursing students, would remain in our area and monitor the patient left in the labor room. Everybody was tired, of course, including the staffs, and a few minutes after the delivery, everyone seemed to fall asleep. I was the one left awake, cleaning the helipad and whatsoever DR instruments. I felt weird at that time and was uncomfortable doing my task, but I just ignored it. While cleaning the instruments, I felt somebody walking behind me. I thought it was one of my classmates, so I turned around and tried to approach something, but when I turned, nobody was there, only a gust of wind that passed through me. Gosh! That's weird, I told myself. Well, I still continued what I was doing. Later, I felt sleepy too. It was already 2:30 a.m. in the morning. I walked into the labor room to check the parturient vital signs and I sat on the chair at the corner of the door, near to one of the beds in the labor room. I closed my eyes and leaned my head on the wall. Suddenly, something tried to wake me up. I slowly opened my eyes and I saw someone pacing along the labor room. I thought it was the staff nurse giving medicine to the patient, but it wasn't. The figure was smaller than the size of an adult. I tried to figure it out who is she or he could be. When my vision seemed clear, I saw a little boy. It was a little boy even though he was not facing at me. He was jumping and jumping at the other corner of the labor room. I wondered how this little boy got inside. I tried to stand up and ask him, but I couldn't move. Even my fingers couldn't move, and no words would come out in my mouth. I told myself this is not normal anymore, that little boy in white shirt could not be like me. He could be others. My heart beats very fast and I don't have any idea what to do. Everybody is still sleeping, and I can't even cry for help because I can't speak. Again, I felt goosebumps and another weird gust of wind passed through me that made me feel cold and chilly. I said, "Calm down, Jessa, calm down, pray, pray, pray," and so I did. Then everything shut down after my last prayer. I heard voices around me. I slowly opened my eyes, then I saw some of my classmates were awake and they were monitoring the patient. I looked at my wristwatch and it was 5 a.m. That was so weird and scary. I tried not to tell anyone until 7 a.m. I asked my classmates if they felt something that's not right in the delivery room. Well, half of them said that they had, and another half noticed nothing. Weeks passed. We returned in the delivery room for our next concept. We're on the afternoon shift and lucky for us, we don't have any patients to monitor in the labor room. So our clinical instructress discussed something related to our concept and the discussion switched into some ghostly stories. I kept my mouth shut and tried not to tell anyone about what I had experienced during my last duty. And one of my classmates talked about some ghostly stories about the area that she heard from other students. She heard that there's a spirit of a little boy playing along the labor room. As well as my clinical instructress, she opened to us about her personal experiences in the labor room. Then I knew that it was the same as mine. My encounter with an aswang. I have numerous experiences with ghosts or whatever they might be, but this one I would never forget. It happened when I moved up to Calamba from Paranormal due to my new job location. I rented a penthouse. It's on the rooftop on a 2-story building apartment. I'm living with my girlfriend, and in the first weeks we began to experience strange things. At first we tried to hold these from each other but then began to discuss them among ourselves. I told her at times I would hear a male voice whistling in a merry tone, or some people, a female, conversing in the middle of the afternoons, which to my surprise she hears them too. She then told me she would catch at time in the corner of her eyes a silhouette rushing through the door, which I do also encounter. Her elder sister one time visited and stayed with us, and during the first day she said she sensed something in the house but told us it was guarding the house or we need not to be afraid. She told us this even we don't tell her any stories of it. Now, the worst one, we are experiencing this scratching, something like crawling or walking in our roof. At time we would hear thuds. I already have hints it's an aswang. I was so angry at it that I would curse at it when we heard the sounds. It was one night my Spitz dog, which I tied to the back door, was crying in the middle of the night, and I knew it starting again. Slowly, with all the lights off, I approached the back door and I heard the only sound that I cannot decide what kind or where it was coming from. It was somewhat coming afar. It says kaayak. Kayak sounds like a bird or whatever that is scaring the hell out of my dog. I was told that the aswang sounds afar when it is near you. My dog was really scared with her body pressed against the back door crying. I was just waiting for the doorknob to turn, and I'm really going to blow this aswang away if it intends to go through my back door. So I clicked on the hammer of my gun and got into a position. Suddenly the sound stops. Probably heard the gun clicking. My eyes were all over the place, looking the window direction or any. It was dark and I don't if he already managed to sleep in the house. I let out a curse for the aswang to hear seconds later there was nothing. Soon I was back in the bed, and we heard rattling on our roof, and again with my gun and a knife, my girlfriend along with me, we went out of the house. I'd say past 12 midnight maybe, and check out our roof. I told her to throw garlics and salt in the roof and around the house, especially on the door's path. It was then that it all stops for months. It was then we are sitting outside the house enjoying the moon that night when she notices something flying, flapping its wings at points. It to me, to my surprise, I cannot make something to what I see. Brown in color, maybe the size of a dog, some 100 meters away maybe, and my girlfriend and just look at each other and we both agree it's no big bird or bat it is. It was flying slow and I'm totally sure it's now all too. I've seen owls, they don't get that big nor fly that way. Today I sleep with my guns and knives beside me. I was told to wet the bullets with my saliva to have them penetrate these beings the same way I did with my samurai and knives' sharpness. Who knows, I may be the first one to kill some of things or whatever they are maybe. My office sleeping quarter. This happened a few months ago. Our call center company just opened a new site for its operations, a 2-story warehouse-like building. We have a separate sleeping quarter for men and women. Ours is a big room and there are about 20 double-decker beds in it. It also has a medium-sized comfort room. I recall at that time that I was very sleepy. I barely had any sleep that day. I worked the graveyard shift, so at around 2 a.m., I think, I could barely keep myself from dozing off. I told my girlfriend, whom I was chatting with on MSN at that time, she was at home, that I needed to sleep for a bit. Then I logged off from the phone and headed for the sleeping quarters. Now the bed I got was the lower deck of the pair, which was closest to the entrance of the room. The lights were off. The only light was that of the comfort room, which was across the room but only a few steps from the bed I was assigned to, and the lights coming in from the entrance door slits. So it was pretty dark, but I could faintly see inside the room. If I recall correctly, there were about 4 other agents asleep at that time. The air conditioning in the room was moderate, making it pretty comfortable to sleep in without using a blanket, so I didn't go under the covers. Besides, I had my shoes on. I admit that I am easily frightened when it comes to anything seemingly paranormal. My family, including relatives, have all experienced firsthand paranormal encounters, so I am not a skeptic when it comes to that subject. This is also the reason why I found it hard to sleep that night. I was very reluctant to close my eyes, fearing that someone or something might approach me and attack me. Furthermore, it was my first time sleeping there. I felt uneasy, fearing that the other people in the room might be waking up soon, leaving me by myself. I had this uncanny feeling of a presence in the room, especially at the dark corners and the unoccupied beds. I kept looking around without moving my head, always at the ready to leap up from bed and run to the exit in seeing something horrifying, anything. Much to my discomfort and anguish, the other people did need to wake up and leave the room. Eventually, there was only me and one other agent asleep on the other side of the room. This was when I felt a mild panic. It is funny how little sounds, distinct noises, can catch your attention when your nerves are at their highest. I heard sounds like one of the beds to my right, at the very end of the room where it was extremely dark, creak for a split second, footsteps across the hall outside, near from where the bed at the end was, although I pictured the layout of the building in my mind, and I was pretty sure that there was no hallway from where the footsteps were coming from, which sounded like someone walking on high heels and something like a small and hard object hitting the ground from across the room. But then I'd look quickly and see nothing or no one there. I looked if the other agent was causing the noise, but he did not even budge, he was fast asleep. I was almost telling myself to get up and leave, but I really needed to sleep. Somehow, I was able to sleep. I don't know how long I'd been sleeping then, but I recall waking up suddenly in a sort of semi-conscious panicky state. My mind was fuzzy, as if everything was in slow motion. My vision was a bit fuzzy as well, but my body was numb. I felt cold, and I had this feeling of overwhelming panic, as though it was caused by my falling asleep and letting my guard down. My vision was still blurry and my mind weak. I could not move my head, so I looked to the right a little bit with my eyes, and that it when I saw this black shadow or silhouette standing to the right of my bed. The being, from its height, I could tell was a child, a boy perhaps. It was not moving, just standing there staring, looking down at me. I dared not look at its face, fearing to see its eyes fixed on mine. I immediately looked straight up, horrified and at the same time extremely angry at this being's presence. I felt angry because it had invaded my privacy or perceived territory when I had fallen asleep, leaving me vulnerable. I forced myself to get up, but I couldn't. My whole body would not react to my brain's commands. It was then that I remember surrendering myself to him. I recited the Lord's Prayer in my mind, at the same time saying, "O Lord, please help me." It was then that I was able to move my body. I leapt from bed and without looking back, and I ran to the exit. I am still working in the same company, same office building. But I never dared to venture there again, even until now. I only told my experience to my girlfriend and one colleague, and much to my surprise, my colleague told me that he too hears all sorts of strange sounds in the room when he sleeps there, but then he just dismisses them. My girlfriend told me never to sleep there again, fearing that I was not welcomed. The vacant room. My name is Eunice. I am 20 years old, and I live in Baguio City, Philippines. I am fond of reading ghost stories ever since I was young, but I get easily scared when it comes to watching scary movies alone. The story I'm going to tell you happened only this year. This occurred on the third week of February 2012 at my boarding house. First, let me tell you about my boarding house. The place is a 4-story building with 4 rooms each on the second and third floor. My room is at the second floor and my room is right beside the common kitchen and dining room. The other rooms were occupied a few weeks before I got there. The third room, which is in between my room and the kitchen, became vacant because the girl living there transferred to the third floor. Remember this room because this is where it all happened. I lived in my room alone until just recently when my sister moved in with me. Anyways, back to my story. I was living in that room for the second month when it happened. It was around February this year and it was a Sunday afternoon, but I'm not sure on the exact date. I just finished all my household chores for the day, then I decided to call up my boyfriend to come over and accompany me. When he got there, we just watched movies and uploaded some photos on my laptop. We spent the whole afternoon chatting about the things we've done for the week, then we had our dinner together. After dinner we went to the kitchen to wash the dishes. When we were on our way to the kitchen we passed by the vacant room. When we were moving towards the room, I was feeling a little uneasy. I always feel uneasy passing through this room every time I pass by, especially at night. When we were at the kitchen, I went to the comfort room, and I left the dishes with my boyfriend for him to finish it. When I came back, I hugged him facing the stairs beside the empty room. I then saw something that made me let go of my boyfriend. It was a dark shadow, and it was stepping out of the vacant room. It was only the lower half of a human body, but I could feel that it was looking at us. It startled me so bad that I froze for a few seconds, then when I blinked it just vanished. I told my boyfriend what I saw, and I was uneasy and scared. After I told my boyfriend what I saw, he told me that when he was doing the dishes, he felt that someone was looking at him, but when he turned around no one was there. We were the only ones there when it happened. It freaked me out that I rushed into my room. The following day, I asked my neighbor who is occupying the first room next to me if she happens to feel or see something unusual, but sadly, she said no. I can say that I wasn't imagining things when it all happened, since we didn't watch any scary movies or talk about ghost stories that could trigger our imagination to kick in. After that incident though, I never saw it again, but I still feel uneasy every time I glimpse on the kitchen at night, especially when the kitchen light was turned off. But before the room became vacant, the tenant who lived there was a student and was living there alone, but she kept on going out at night and came home the following day. Right now, though, it's currently occupied by a couple, but I don't know if they felt anything. Well, that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks. Haunted Resort. This was my experience last 2012 in a beautiful resort in Indang, Cavite. It was vacation when this took place. The resort has 11 different swimming pools, which the water came from a flowing river. I'm not sure about that, but it is flowing. I was 11 at that time, and almost all of my relatives from my mother's side, siblings, aunts, cousins, nephews, niece, and some relatives of my brother-in-law, because he was the one who treated us, are present in our outing. We arrived at maybe 5 to 6 p.m. and it was dark already. My brother-in-law Michael went to the counter and asked for a room and cottage for us to sleep, since we're staying there for 2 days. The man in the counter said that rooms are all occupied already, but then he changed his mind and told us there's one more room left. As the man was leading us to the room, he looked very scared, like he doesn't want to go to the room. He gave the key to Jimmy, my cousin's husband, and let him open the door, but he couldn't. He kicked and pushed door hard and the door didn't open at all, but when Michael tapped the door, it quickly opened. Then they looked at each other with the "what the heck was that" face. On the other hand, us, my siblings and my cousins that were ready to dive to the pool, went directly to the cottage together with my aunts. Then we saw something weird. 2 people with a priest is in the pool, and the priest was soaking them to the water. After that, we found out that they have been possessed in some reason. While we are busy eating in the cottage, before we went to the swimming pool, my girl cousin Rox and our Aunt Sheila, which we often call Mommy, look at each other. My aunt asked her, Nakita mo ba yun? Did you see that? Rox agreed and said, to Mommy, yes Mommy. They said that there was a yellow eyes and it was twinkling on the palm tree standing behind our cottage. After taking pictures, swimming, having fun at the pool, the elders told us to take a shower and to sleep. The boys slept at the cottage and other girls, including me, slept at the room with the babies and their mothers. I woke up in the morning and realized that I was the only person on the room, and those who slept with me are excited to swim again. When I was about to open the door, I bumped into my Aunt Joy and told me to get out of the room. Next to her was my cousin Robbie, 20 plus at that time, who was crying, Rox, my sister Save, Michael, Jimmy, Neng, Jimmy's wife, and Aunt Sheila. I asked my younger cousins what had happened, and they said that my cousin Robbie had a dream about a girl in the room being stabbed in the bed by his own boyfriend after knowing that she is cheating on him, and washed his hands on the comfort room. And that is why Mommy Sheila smelled a rotten flesh like when she was about to use the bathroom. My relatives that came from the room looked very shocked and we asked them why. They said that Robbie asked them to flip the mattress of the bed and after flipping, they saw handprints made of blood and blood stains. And then Robbie cried again. Thank you for reading, guys. This story was not yet finished. And I will make a part 2 if this story was published. If some grammars and words are wrong, I'm sorry. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and comments. Also hit the notification bell for more updates.